All right, folks, the cameras are back on. Welcome back to another episode of the Raul Reyes Show. We've got a lot of information to provide today. Hopefully, everybody's doing okay. We've got our trusty sidekick, Linda Ruski. Can you hear me? We're good. So she's giving me the thumbs up. All technicalities have been corrected. We don't pay her enough, and that's why sometimes she screws it up, but that's okay. We're having fun here and trying to be as informative as we can with a lot of folks. A lot of stuff happened in politics. I mean, you would think we're on fire here. Oh, she just realized I was making fun of her over here. And folks, we've got here in a minute. I'm going to bring Alden Cabello on. He's standing by out in Eagle Pass. I want to make sure we give him plenty of time to tell us what's going on the border. You know, we've had Frank Lopez here before. We had Anthony Aguero here before. Our goal is to get as many people that are out there on the border telling us what's really happening. And that way you can go to the right places to see what's really happening on the border, because we're in trouble. There's just thousands and thousands of folks that are coming into the country illegally, and they're trying to change the layout, the landscape of America. And so none of these folks are going to assimilate. They're going to end up on some kind of welfare. That's already happening. If you're looking out in New York City, places like Chicago, they're starting to already have issues out there. And a lot of it is, they're taking over, or somebody's paying. Well, the federal government's paying millions, maybe even billions of dollars on hotel stays for folks in New York. I've been to New York. Nobody paid for my tab to go to New York. Every time I go anywhere, I've got to pay for my own hotel. And this is America. We don't want the federal government doing anything for us other than defending the nation like it's supposed to. But somehow, Joe Biden is able to, with a whip of a pen, give, I don't know, 500,000 Venezuelans the opportunity to stay here legitimately, totally circumventing the laws. Absolutely. Circumventing the laws. Another topic we're going to hit on tonight is just again, the Republican, the GOP civil war that is happening inside the tent. It's continuing to brew. It's not going to get any better. It's not just at Austin, folks. It's not just down here in the state capitol. It's all the way up to the federal government, where some folks are demanding a CR. And if you don't know what that is, it's a continuous resolution for providing money for the government to be funded. I don't know. I don't think it's the entire Freedom Caucus, but folks like Matt Gaetz are pushing back. Chip Roy, they're all saying, you said we weren't going to do this again, and here we are, back at the same spot they always put Republicans in, and even though they're in charge of the House. And so lots going on. Eagle Pass is a mess. I put up a post on social media, and I asked the question, do you regret voting for Greg Abbott yet? And and if you didn't, go Google Eagle Pass. And everybody here knows I'm not a fan of Greg Abbott. I just think the uh, state rights, our sovereign rights, are, our we are the United States of America, not the federal states of America, is completely been just violated. There's no way we ought to be listening to anything Joe Biden should be doing, because we are Texas, and we ought to be able to defend Texas. But as you can see, anytime the federal government flinches, we're now all conditioned to just worry about what the federal government is supposed to do. We are not a monarchy, folks. Let me just remind everybody, we are the United States of America, and united. We're here under our own free will to be a part of this great country. But the federal government doesn't tell us what to do. It should never tell us what to wear a mask. It shouldn't tell us to close our churches. It shouldn't tell us that we can't defend our children from the mess that is on the border today. And yet, when I put up, Greg Abbott, do you regret voting for that guy? Everybody jumps on and says, "Oh, how can he's doing everything you can?" Well, I'm going to prove tonight that he's not. And with that said, I want to bring on. I'll then give me a thumbs up if you're ready to go here on that side, and if you are, good. I'll then Cabello, by the way, you can find him on, and we're going to put all his credentials toward the end, because I want you to follow this guy. He's bringing a lot of video footage about what's happening in Mexico along the border. And so we want to make sure you know where to go to get the news. You can come here, but you can go to all these different folks. And so without further ado, let me introduce Mr. Cabello. Alden, how are you? Where are you? Where are you, Alden?
It's good to be with you, Raul. I'm currently in Piedras Negras, right across from Eagle Pass, Texas. And ironically, in front of me, in front of the camera, which you can't see, it's already dark, there's a group of 200 migrants. That's the last remnant of the 1,500 that arrived today on train here to Piedras Negras. And they've been crossing throughout different times of the day. But it's been 1,500 that I started documenting yesterday that were in Frontera, Coahuila. The Mexican immigration and Mexican military got them off the train in Nava, Coahuila, and they were forced to walk. So they've been walking since 7 in the morning. That's why they've been arriving at different times here in Piedras Negras and crossing. But they all go to one. They get funneled with all the wire. They get funneled to one area underneath the bridge, and that's where they're all scattered. And at certain times, that's when National Guard will suddenly disappear. They leave the area, and that's when the migrants cross and they walk over to underneath International Bridge 2 and turn themselves into Border Patrol agents. And from there, they get transported to the processing center. But it's been very busy over here in Piedras Negras. The flow is continuous, and it seems like there's no end in sight.
Yeah, in fact, I'm currently showing your video where these folks are on a train, and it looks like every, it's, I guess it's these trains that carry coal or cargo, but it's open. This is your video where you're showing a lot of folks on these trains. They're just moving slowly, and what happens here? Off these trains, they jump off somewhere. And then they go what, to the river? Is that what they're doing? This is
yeah. So let me provide a little bit of context. I do want to apologize that it's dark. I didn't bring my gear, but we're live. I'm giving you the information I have now. Back in December of last year, I was in Monterrey covering migrants that were arriving there by train. It's been very little coverage on it. The Bestia, the train, it's more documented in southern and central Mexico, but no one was documenting that that's how they were arriving to the border, to the northern parts of Mexico. In December, I went to Monterrey, and sure enough, that's where we followed a group of migrants that were boarding the train in Monterrey. And since then, I've dug deeper into these train routes, and it happens that from Tapachula, once the migrants cross from the Darien Gap in Panama, Central America, and go through to Tapachula, Chiapas, which I've been there, that's ground zero where all the migrants at. Right now, it's busting at the seams. So this flow is not going to stop. That's in Tapachula. That's where they get their paperwork so they can transit to Mexico. One of the main points where they go to is Irapuato, Guanajuato, and that's where they take the train. It's a cargo freight train that has routes through all Mexico, and they're all going north, and it's merchandise that's going into the United States. From Irapuato, there's one route that goes to Torreon, Coahuila, and then from there it splits to Juarez, Chihuahua, and Monterrey. The one from Monterrey is the one that ends up in Reynosa or Piedras Negras, and that's why you're seeing this mad rush of mainly Venezuelans that are arriving, and they're all arriving by train. Juarez is being hit right now, El Paso, and so is Eagle Pass, Piedras Negras, and that's one of the reasons that they're arriving by train. Every other day, it's anywhere from 500 to 3,000, like we saw last week.
Yeah, I think, what, as we're sharing your video here, we're watching all these people, and then the question always becomes, who's orchestrating this? Do we know who? I mean, how do all these people, when we look at these videos, they have very little baggage with them. Some of these folks just have the clothes on their back. Some might have a backpack. A lot of them seem to have kids with them. But is this orchestrated? Like they're moving from one place? I mean, there's people on this videos with absolutely zero bags or any kind of content, and they seem to be pretty healthy. Somebody is feeding them. Who's coordinating? Have you been able to see and find out what that on the backside is? Is this the NGOs? What is going on back there?
Yeah, so the one time I was in Tapachula, ACNUR, which is a branch of the UN, they're present there. Red Cross, There's a lot of NGOs that are coaching and training the migrants on how to what to say once they're into the U.S. and use the credible fear argument. But I've noticed a stark difference. So, for example, when I was in Acuña and Del Rio documenting the Haitians getting there, arriving there was also a lot of Venezuelans and Cubans, but I would call those more the wealthy Venezuelans and Cubans because they were flying into Cancun, Acapulco, Monterrey, and from there they would take a bus to Acuña. They would still have their luggage with their airplane tickets and cross into Del Rio. The
Right.
big difference today is that these migrants happen to be from Venezuela, and all the ones that I've spoken to, they're on the lower end. They're poor. I'm not sure where they're getting the money from because I've heard it's at least $4,000 just to buy food, just the basics.
Right.
And that's how they're that's a big difference. That's why they're taking the cargo train because they don't have enough money to buy a bus ticket, stay in a hotel. They're sleeping in the train carts. I've seen them just with the water. I've talked to them. I interview them. I said I've been drinking water for 4 days, but they keep pushing. Like I said, Red Cross was here assisting just for any emergencies, and that's how they make it to the borders.
And how do they know where they're going? Because I mean, is it just on the whim? They're going to be they're on the train and they're going to get processed when they get to I guess the border patrol station and then ultimately to an NGO. Do they just say, yeah, I've got family somewhere and that's where I'm going to go? Because right now New York is in trouble, Chicago. I mean, a lot of us conservatives want to laugh in their despair, but really, there's good people in New York, there's good people in Chicago that, to no fault of theirs, their leaders have brought all these illegal aliens into the neighborhoods. But when the illegal aliens, when they're processed, do they know? Is somebody, I mean, they say their name. I want to know how people who have absolutely nothing except a T-shirt on their backs with a bottle of water know where they're going. Is that program somewhere?
Yeah, well, this is where your blood is probably going to boil. And not to get political, most of my videos, I rarely talk. I let the images speak for themselves.
Yeah,
But
you're on a political
when I have
show,
an
so go
opportunity,
for it.
yeah, when I have an opportunity, I go into Del Rio once they get released from the NGO, and that's where I talk to them. That's where I get a lot of information. It's coming directly from them. And what I noticed here recently is every time I ask them, it's become a trend, as if you know a certain brand or something is in fashion. Right now, it's in fashion to migrate to the United States because it's wide open. So it's
Yeah.
become a trend. That's why you're seeing so many. And it's not only males; it's families, entire families, grandparents, children, different generations. And when I talk to them in Del Rio, once they've been processed and they're waiting for the transportation to go into the interior of the country, um, that's what they're telling me. I asked them, is like, where are you going? Is there a relative? And this is what's going to shock you. They're expecting NGOs to help them out. They're expecting a friend of a friend to help them out.
Yeah.
There's some that don't have relatives. They don't have anybody in the United States. So they're just on a whim, going along with the flow with everybody because that's what everybody's doing.
Yeah, and now then I'm showing a picture here of this is a mother and her child that are literally, they're going through that barbed wire, that really sharp wire, and it's heartbreaking because that's how they're getting through. And I mean, you're seeing this every day. It's got to be. I mean, it's heartbreaking for us. I'm from Del Rio, which is why we're actively always involved in politics. Our number one goal here, all then, was always been to secure this border. I saw a post. Obviously Biden broke this, but we're not seeing any Republicans jumping in here. We saw Tony Gonzalez out there in Del Rio, but that guy's all show. But no, what no most people don't know is he's part of the NGOs. And so back to you. I mean, you've been out there every day, or you go out there when you can. I mean, how do you typically get involved with this?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you a little bit about my story. I was born and raised in Fort Stockton, Texas. I'm a U.S. citizen.
Yeah.
My wife is from Piedras Negras. And right now in the process, I'm trying to get her a green card. So I'm having to pay thousands of dollars. I'm having to wait in line. We're going on 2 years. And that's why I live in Acuña. She can't go into the U.S. Me as a U.S. citizen, I'm having to live on the Mexican side because of current immigration law. But at the same time, I've been documenting now for 3 years, maybe more, how thousands of migrants have crossed the river illegally and they get a free pass into the country. And since then, I just decided to start documenting what's happening here at the border and give a new perspective. I consider myself a conservative as well. Currently, I'm frustrated with Republicans. They're all talk.
Yep.
On social media, I've been starting to call them out because of their inaction. Yeah, they're great for social media clips. They're grandstanding what they say. But if you come down to the border and if you come down from the Mexican side, from this perspective, you'll see another reality. It's not only a human crisis, a humanitarian crisis, it's a crisis at every level. And the blame is not just on Democrats, it's also on Republicans. And I think that's what your audience and the public needs to know and needs to understand. Hold them accountable as well.
Absolutely. And, we do that here because, we're conservative. We ran as Republicans here, Alden, and but somehow the elected Republicans don't seem to be Republican enough. Greg Abbott, I'm a harsh critic of that guy. I think that the state of Texas can do more, but it doesn't do it. What I think is amazing now, then, that your integrity won't let you take care of. I mean, you're doing it right for your wife and your family, and so that just, I tell you what, that just give me chills that there's good people like yourself out there doing this, and for all our audience, look, you should know, Alden has an opportunity to do what everybody else does by doing this with the wife, by bringing her over and through the river, but he refuses to do the wrong thing. And so I want to say, just God bless you. Look, we're going to bring you back as often as you want to, project your information on this show. We're going to leave everybody's down in our comments. We're going to have where you can reach Alden. His videos are amazing. I mean, he's on the other side, so he's capturing all this. Real quick, Alden, we're not in a hurry, but my question now to you is, any safety issues on your side? I mean, I look at Oscar El Blue. I see Ben Berkholm has been down there at the, Darien Gap. I see Anthony Agüero on the other side, but you're in Mexico all the time. I'm always concerned with, like yourself and Oscar El Blue, any issues from, that you can tell us? I mean, are you targeted? Are people watching you? Because I have to believe this is not good, that you seem to be exposing a lot of things that people would otherwise don't want anybody to see.
Yeah, I am the source on the ground for a lot of networks. A lot of the footage you see in the news media comes from this side, from this vantage point. I am in the mix with the migrants here on the Mexican side when they cross. I know that they're watching me, as far as politicians, leaders on the Mexican side, maybe even law enforcement. But so far, I don't interfere with those that are taking advantage of this and making a profit of it. I don't interfere with their business. I just simply document what's happening here on the Mexican side without calling out anybody. Like I said, the images speak for themselves. They tell you, I mean, they're going to tell you, look at these images of migrants arriving here. Of course, it has to be orchestrated. Of course, somebody's behind it. But I don't name names. I just leave it out for the public to interpret everything and make a judgment for themselves.
Yeah, no, listen, and I think you're doing it right. I mean, we definitely want to see all this information, but I don't think people understand that, you even with this much, you put yourself in harm's way, and we can't thank you enough. Keep doing the good work here. You're welcome to send us anything you want on our links. We'll put it up on our face social media. And if you want to come back week after week just to give us an update, feel free to do that. I have, for everybody, I've not met Alden personally, but I am absolutely a fan of all the work that he's doing. He's bringing us a different perspective from the Mexican side. And as you can see on these videos that we've been showing, this is stuff that we're capturing on this side, but you're seeing how people are on the Mexican side arriving, and Alden is capturing all that information for us. And I wanted him to come on board so he can tell us what he's going through, what he's seeing. And of course, with everything, there's an emotional aspect to this because I'm sure he's seeing some of the most gross things. I mean, we've got not just dead adults on the river, but babies, children. There's, they're talking about young girls getting abortions because they're being impregnated on the way to the border. It is the sickest thing that has ever happened. Then I can't thank you enough. I'll give you 30 seconds. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, what I've witnessed here on the Mexican side, it's something that I hope the national media would cover. I think everybody in America would have a different perspective of what's happening at the border. I mean, it's beyond. There's some images that leave me speechless. A lot of images that I haven't been able to share on social media. Dead bodies, you name it. I've seen it all. I've heard it all, and to some extent you become callous, but at the end of the day, I'm still human. They're still human, and that's why I still consider this to be a humanitarian crisis above everything else, and it needs to be fixed. These people are suffering. This border crisis is affecting the communities, not only in Del Rio, Acuña, all over here in Piedras Negras. They have one bridge closed. It's affecting commerce. They're losing millions of dollars, and it's affecting Eagle Pass. Hospitals are full
Yeah.
with migrants. They can't attend the residents of Eagle Pass. I mean, it's complete chaos. And I'll continue to document as much as I can from the Mexican side. And thank you for this opportunity to be on your show. And sure enough, hopefully next time I can join you for my studio and have more footage for you.
Certainly, just know you have a big fan here. Our audience is going to track you as well. We'll bring you on board as much as you want. This is only going to get worse out then, so we're going to keep sharing your videos. God bless you. Stay safe, and thank you for coming on, okay?
Yes, sir. We'll do.
Wow. One of the things that nobody talks about with some of these things, and part of what drives a guy like me and Alden, and if you look at Frank Lopez, Anthony Agüero, I mean, and I can name a lot of folks, even on the Mama Bear side. I always keep mentioning folks like Tara Pesh and some of the great people that are trying to get people to come out and vote and change the way. Is this inner thing that drives us to just like for instance, I wasn't when I was a child, I wasn't growing up to decide I wanted to be a podcaster. I mean, half the time Linda has to fix half the stuff here because I have no idea. We're informing, we're talking about the issues, but something drives out then to get out there and do something. What's amazing to me is that he's actually following the law like you're supposed to. He lives in Igle Paz on the other side in Piedras with his wife, who is unable to come to this side yet because they legitimately want to come here. He's paying the thousands of dollars that the immigration process requires while people just cross willy-nilly over to the great state of Texas. And I get a little choked up because it reminds me when I show these pictures of the children, one of the main reasons I jumped into politics way, it seems like forever ago, back in 2019, is because I'd seen a video of a little girl who had just completely been just emotionally just beaten, sexually, physically raped. And I went to visit my congressman, and that was Will Hurd. And for all practical purposes, he didn't believe that there was a crisis on the border. And you see all these pictures that we're showing of the people that are trying to get here, uh, and 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 then of course you see all these kids in here. Look at all these people walking, And I mean, we've provided a magnet for them to come here. And it goes from all the way from Joe Biden all the way down to our representatives. And yeah, I think Abbott can do one hell of a job better than what he's doing now. And today I saw Frank Lopez. He was at the border, and Newsmax literally was interviewing him there, and he pointed out the one fact that nobody seems to sort of get, and that is videoing literally maybe 15 square feet or of river. But if you go down 1,000 meters to the left or 1,000 meters to the right, they're crossing over there and nobody's defending that. You see all these border patrol boats running back and forth. And the point being here is we are showing Fox News, not we, Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, especially Fox News. They're the worst now. They show you that place down in Eagle Pass where everybody's crossing. There comes Abbott, to the rescue with all his folks. And by the way, we love law enforcement. So nobody send me crap on my comments, because nobody cares more about law. The reason we're on this show is because we want to tell their stories. The border patrol, the trooper who isn't patrolling in the northern counties, because we've got him down here in South Texas and doing Operation Lone Star, which is what Abbott put in place to stop the invasion. And all they do is they film about 1,000 feet along the river. They show all these boats running around. It almost looks like a show. And here comes Frank Lopez, one of my friends. He points down the river. Actually, he went down the river and he showed us there's no activity down there. They're just people are crossing left and right everywhere. So Alden is right. This isn't just a Joe Biden problem. It is now a Governor Abbott, the great state of Texas problem. We've established a precedence in this country in the last year or two that the federal government can do whatever it wants to, and we can't defend our families. I think that's a bunch of bleep, and I'm going to leave it there. My technician over here says, be careful. I'm going to be careful. But what a mess. And so as I sort of transition, I want to make sure we know there's a couple of things that are in play here in America. And this video is a little blurry. I'm not sure why it's doing that, but we're going to play this anyway because I want you to listen to. And now let me set this up, because we just went from the border, and I'm going to take you here to Maria Bartiromo is interviewing Matt Gaetz. And Matt Gaetz literally just wiped the floor with this lady. And I think I saw Steve Bannon. For any of you who are watching some of the other, internet conservative shows, Steve Bannon was, Maria's kind of on our side, but she had to ask some tough questions. I think Maria's on the Fox News side. Anybody on Fox News, if you see anybody, for all the newbies that are watching right now, anybody on Fox News, and you can name them, like you'll see Greg Abbott's on there, Karl Rove is on there, you'll see our fake Republican Tony Gonzalez is on there as well. If you see these people on Fox News, they're grifters, and they're being taken care of by the conservative FAW news that is Fox News, because really they're not telling the whole story. Because if Fox News really wanted to know the truth, they would ask Greg Abbott, why haven't you secured this border? Why haven't you challenged the sovereignty of Texas up against the federal government's right to tell us what to do and not to do? That post I started off with today, that I put on Facebook and everywhere else, I asked the question, do you regret voting for Abbott? And the answer for me is yes, because I thought he had more backbone than this. I mean, now this is in November. In the primaries, I was all in for somebody else other than Abbott, because I can see these rhinos coming a mile away. I'm going to remind a few of my viewers who've hung in here. When I first hit the scene back in 2019, me and a guy like Frank Lopez and a few other folks were called negative for exposing the very thing you're seeing now. And so let me get back to Matt Gaetz and Maria Bartiromo Just listen to this exchange here. Let me share this real quick here, and it's going to be a little blurry. I'm not sure why it's happening, but like I said, we're not technicians here. We're trying to do our best here. But listen to this here for a second.
Are there Freedom Caucus members also out of compliance? They were also on the Appropriations Committee. Where is the responsibility for them? Are they also out of compliance?
No, I'm not a member of the Freedom Caucus. I'll let them speak for themselves. But take, for example, the border. This issue you think has great primacy, and I would agree with you. The Department of Homeland Security appropriations bill was passed out of the Appropriations Committee in June. And yet Kevin McCarthy hasn't put it on the floor in more than 100 days. That is not serious. You know why Kevin McCarthy didn't move our border appropriations bill? Because the lobbyists and the special interests who own Kevin McCarthy want to put us in this position where we're backed up against the wall, facing shutdown politics. And what that does is it centralizes power to the people that they buy off with.
Yeah, did you hear that? I have to tell you that's key, because how many government shutdowns have we been through, and the Republicans always get rolled over with this, oh, you're going to cost the government to get shut down. And Matt Gaetz here, from the time that McCarthy, it took 14 votes to get him across the line, and Matt Gaetz was one of the last holdouts, along with Chip Roy and a few other great Americans. And I'm gonna say this: back in January, when they had the big food fight, listen, I was cheering on that we get rid of Kevin McCarthy. And why? Because Matt Gaetz just said it right there. He is bought and paid for. Now, for all my Texas, followers here, what does that sound like? It sounds like Dade Phelan right down here in Austin. Why did 60 Republicans join Dade Phelan with a bunch of Democrats to try and take out the strongest Republican who has been fighting Joe Biden? His name is Ken Paxton. Why did that happen? Because they're all bought and paid for. So guys like me, when we jump into the primary and we look at you and say, why would you vote? Now I'm going to jump into CD23 just for a second. Why would you vote for Tony Gonzalez when we told you he was part of LULAC? Why would you vote for him in this March primary when I'm telling you he's part of the Libre initiative? I mean, we have evidence here, and I keep showing this picture here all the time. Here it is, one more time. This is your Republican 10 days after his first term. He gets inaugurated in Washington, D.C. And remember, we're on COVID back in 2020. So he comes back home. He's probably teleworking. That's what he's doing here. But he decides to go down here with Victoria Wheeler. I forget what her real first name is. I think it is Valeria Wheeler. This lady right here is married to the Eagle Pass Leader News chief editor, who, by the way, this guy here went to denigrate a guy like me and any other candidate that was going to beat him. So it's just typical Democrat politics. Now, why am I saying this? Because this is not unique to CD23. It's unique to every county, every district. Okay. And oh, by the way, this guy here, for all you SD24, Pete Flores is backing this guy right here. And so are some of the commissioners here in my own county, which is absolutely terrible. I mean, talk about having no integrity. All I'm going to say is, so here you have a Republican back in 2020. Folks like me are sounding the alarm, and now you go censure him because guess what? We were right. The reason I'm able to say that, because if you saw Ken Paxton's video earlier, he's saying what we've been saying for 4 years. They went after me with zero evidence. This guy right here called everybody under the sun cartel, drug dealers, and I don't know. It's just absolutely nuts. Now, in March, because that guy's in trouble, there's going to be candidates in CD23. Beware of the grifters. Beware of the carpetbaggers, because we got a guy running in this district already who's from Dallas. By the way, not going to mention names, but you need to look at why would you live in Dallas and run in CD23? Because a guy like Tony Gonzalez, and if you listen to Matt Gaetz, right, McCarthy's in trouble. They're going to try to bully him out or get him out. And guess what? He should leave. He's been no good to this country. McCarthy hired guys like Tony Gonzalez, Michael McCall, the patch guy over there in Houston. What's his name? Oh, Dan Crenshaw. Yeah, Dan Crenshaw, Monica down here in South Texas. All these folks, let me tell you something. They're pro amnesty. They're hanging out with the Libra Initiative, who ultimately, if they ever got the Senate and they got the right president, they'd give amnesty to all these folks. So this is where you have to wake up and you have to start realizing, look, we got to not worry about November. You got to worry about March, because this is where they pull the wool over your eyes. And this is what Matt Gaetz is saying. Now, I'm going to keep playing here a little bit because I want you to hear the rest of this here real quick. Let me see if I can get it all shared up here. Blink. Here we go.
With PAC donations and lobbyist donations, and then the membership doesn't get to make real contributions to that process. I'm trying to democratize it.
The bills are being worked on. You just heard Jim Jordan say that they are efforting 4 bills this week, appropriations bills this week, to get through. That would partially.
By the way, this is the biggest part right here. I want you to listen to this really carefully, okay?
Fund the government. The defense bill as well. You wanted the defense bill to move forward. Did you not?
Yes, that's why I voted for it, and I voted for the rule to proceed onto it. And by the way, don't give Kevin McCarthy credit for the fact that we're moving on to these 4 appropriations bills. That was the deal that House conservatives foisted upon Kevin McCarthy. When he couldn't just move the big spending bills without moving the bills that cut spending, we said, no, no, no. You have to move bills like the state and foreign ops bill, because we don't think we should be borrowing money from China to go fund gay pride parades in Prague or LGBTQ seminars in Indonesia. We don't.
Hey, so there's a key thing here, right? Why would we do this to ourselves all the time? And because Republicans are not all. The bulk of the Republicans that are supporting McCarthy have been bought off, like Matt Gaetz, by PACs with a lot of money, more money than you and I, because the one thing we have that overwhelms them, and Donald Trump proved it in 2016, is if we go out to vote, there's not enough money for you to stop us. But why would McCarthy want one big omnibus bill? Because guess what? This is where they sneak in all the pork, and this is where they give another $50 billion to Ukraine. Ukraine is the most useless war we've been involved in ever, because there's zero national vital interest for Ukraine. Now, today, they've put us and pitted us up against Russia. What they're going to tell you is, Russia is the bad guy. Well, Russia's been the bad guy forever, but they've been contained. We went and stirred up the pot by trying to get Ukraine to be a part of NATO. I'm not the only one who says that. There's numerous diplomatic experts who say we caused this, we started this. For whatever reason, Putin doesn't have the money to be an imperialist. He's not going to march across Europe. He can't afford it. He was barely rebuilding Russia, and even then, he'd be dead by the time Russia would ever be an economic power again. But now they've joined up with China. Back to Matt Gaetz here, right? McCarthy wants one bill. They forced this conversation back in January, and here's the part that I never understood, because the biggest disappointment I had was a guy like Mark Levin, who I absolutely like because he's a constitutionalist. He was on the other side too. Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was supposed to be conservative, all of a sudden, she was also for just McCarthy. Matt Gaetz was one of the last holdouts, and it's proven him correct, because back then, the one consensus that they all agreed to was that they could vacate the speakership if McCarthy didn't do what he said he was going to do. But the bills, this spending bill, they were going to break it down to not just one, but 4, 5, or 6. That goes to what everybody's been saying. Why do we have this one omnibus bill that takes care of everything? We need to have The budget for defense split out. The budget for infrastructure split out. I mean, all these things for the operation of the government split out, but they don't. They want it all in one package because guess what? This is where they take all the money and everybody gets their goodies, to include, I'll say it again, money for Ukraine, which we should have never been in to begin with. And so let's roll a little bit more, Maggots. This is like really long, but we're not going to go that far. Just bear with me here as we keep going. Maria Bartiromo is getting literally mopped all over the floor here with Matt Gaetz. So a little bit more here.
I think that that's a good use of our money. And the only way to do this, Maria, is line by line. Kevin wants it in one big up or down vote.
Yep.
Keep the government open, shut it down. I'm saying single subject spending bills. It's the only way to break the fever and liberate ourselves from this out of control spending.
Well, he's doing the 4 bills next week. So
because we're making him. Because we're making him.
He's doing it.
Right.
So to push now to blow up all of the wins that you all have had now.
Oh, listen. So when she says this, the first thing I want to say is, what wins? Has anybody been impeached by now? And Matt Gaetz is going to say this, but Donald Trump Jr. was already rolled into Congress 3 times, subpoenaed to come talk about crap that never happened. Anybody still believe Russian collusion? Because Hillary Clinton is out there saying the same thing again. Before I get all ranty here, let's go.
Which wins? Please enumerate them.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Well, how about the fact that he has set up a weaponization committee to investigate the deal?
Okay, and there it is. Another stupid committee. We're all going to have a bunch of committees. You know who had a committee down at the border yesterday? Our famous rhino, Tony Gonzalez. And he had a little cheesy sign that said secure the border. Give me a break. Okay, committees aren't working here.
DOJ, whether they're involved in a cover-up.
That's
How about
process.
the fact that he has, hold on.
Wait
How
a
about
second.
the fact that he, hold on. How about the fact that he has set up the China Select Committee to keep China to account? And of course, he has launched this inquiry into impeachment, potentially, for President Biden. Is that not?
By the way, Maria Bartiromo is good friends with McCarthy. This is why you see her defending. And this is Fox News. I canceled Fox News the day that they called it in for Arizona in 2020. I don't believe these people. All they do is they put on a show. This is why you see Abbott on here. You see Karl Rove. You see all these grifters are on here. Me personally, I've had enough. I'm without them. Democrats are bad. Let me say that so that nobody misunderstands me. But to think that Republicans are all good, I don't think so. Here, this is a good Republican right here. This is a good conservative throwing down against his own party because they won't do what they're supposed to do. Onward.
Not what you want?
None of those things are deliverables. Those are steps in a process. Setting up a committee is an end unto itself, only in Washington, D.C.
But
the American people demand results. Hold on, I'll let you talk,
okay,
Maria.
go ahead.
These committees have done nothing to reduce inflation. They've done nothing to actually constrain the Biden government. We can set up committees and have hearings and yell at people, but at the end of the day, if we still send the check to fund a weaponized government, having a weaponization subcommittee is little relief to the American people. And if any of this was serious, we would be sending out subpoenas and compelling process the way the January 6th committee did. We should be operating like them. Instead, we're playing patty cake with the Bidens. We're allowing them to get away with it. And we're funding it. We're sending the money. If we were serious, use the power of the purse.
And there it is, folks. Let me tell you something. People always ask, Raul, what do we do? What do we do? You keep complaining. I'm like, we have a solution. Last night I put out a post, and I hope Craig's listening because we really love that guy, and we have no ill will. It's understood that everybody wants to solve this problem, and Matt Gaetz is looking at us and saying, you're gonna form another committee to get a lot of video, which you're gonna fundraise with. We're not doing anything. The one thing that right now that we can do is for every Republican, and by the way, the Republicans are in charge of the House. One more time. For almost a whole year now, the Republican Party owns the House, which means they own the purse. El dinero, la plata. Did I say that right? La plata. Okay, the money. We should use that to secure this border. Democrats have a lot of goodies that they want. We need to barter against that. You don't get any of that until this stuff at the border stops. Now, what's the problem with what I just said? Here it is. For us here in Congressional District 23, this is the problem. Your Republican threw his weight behind the NGO down in Eagle Pass. So today he's in Eagle Pass with, I don't know, 2 or 3 Rhino Republicans pretending like they're going to solve this issue. You see, but it's all facade, just like Matt Gaetz says, Representative Gaetz says about what happens in DC. Everything is a show. So what can you do? Immediately, you can call this guy and tell him to get off his ass and start voting the right way, because he's the only one in all of Texas who would not support the secure the border bill because he thought it was racist. So long term, and I know you don't want to hear this. I know you don't want to hear this, but you got to listen, because you cannot forget. This is the clarion call. In March, you can't go vote for Tony. You cannot go. If you have people that live in California, tell them not to vote for McCarthy anymore. Now, some of you are saying, they're rigged. No, they're not. Not everything is rigged, folks. Maybe in 2020 because of the way the COVID and all that crap happened. But we've got to stop pretending like everything is rigged. Right now, what we got to do is look at Congress and tell them to use the money against Democrats so that we can secure this border. By the way, that's what Matt Gaetz is doing. That's what Chip Roy's doing. But where are the rest of the Republicans? And this is why you're frustrated. So what does a Republican do? They turn around and kind of like Maria Bartiromo here, they want to defend McCarthy when there's actually no defense for him. And before anybody calls us, oh my God, you've gone all Democrat. No, we haven't. But if we're going to fight Democrats, you're not going to do it with weasels like this who lied to you and said, we are Republicans. And the first thing he does is he throws his weight behind the NGOs. And if you didn't know it, for a lot of you watching, that guy had his office in the Endeavor's NGO office. I mean, how much more proof do you need? Okay, away from Tony, back to Matt Gaetz. Listen what I'm going to say to you. The other thing you can do is start pushing your county sheriffs. Del Rio, I'm completely disappointed in that sheriff down there. And you can send him this video. He's a friend. I've known him and his family for a long time. But if you look at the Kinney County sheriff, they have 11 miles, a little strip of border. That guy's doing stuff to stop the illegal alien invasion of his county, because he gets car chases after car chase. And if you don't know, if you were to go due west to Del Rio, right before you get to Del Rio, there's Kinney County is Brackettville. So they don't even have, I don't think they have a light, right? No, it's a blinking light, but it's not a stoplight. Okay, it's a blinking light. Poof, you roll 40 miles an hour, don't get a speed ticket. That's Brackettville. But you go down to Valverde County, Del Rio, and Piedras Negras, those sheriffs don't know how to use the Constitution. I was telling a story about the guy, the former mayor, Bruno. I forget what Bruno's last name is. It Lozano? Anyway, the former mayor of Del Rio, Texas, whom I've met in person, and as a person, he's a fun guy, terrific guy. We don't see eye to eye on politics and a whole lot of other things, but Bruno, when they had remember the 18,000 Haitians underneath the bridge, Bruno got so upset that the Democrat Party wouldn't do anything, right? Because he was trying to get a hold of Joe Biden and everybody and their grandmother. He's a Democrat, by the way. He couldn't get any progress. And you know what Bruno did? Bruno shut down the streets in front of the port of entry. And for 2 hours, he impacted the entire border. Now, I don't know if he knew that, but he literally stopped all traffic. And in essence, he got the attention of the president of Mexico, the governor of the state of Coahuila, and the mayor of Ciudad Acuña, which is right across Del Rio, Texas. Now, again, I don't know if Mayor Bruno knew that when he did that he was going to completely stop everything. And for 2 hours, we secured the border because one city mayor said, you can't come on my streets. And guess what? It's taxpayer Del Rio City streets. You see? You know who can do that? Governor Abbott, but he won't. And next week we're going to talk about Colony Ridge, because if you haven't heard about Colony Ridge, it's in Liberty County. Look it up. Just Google Colony Ridge. Turns out the guy that's developing that, and the background on this is Colony Ridge is a big spread of acres that is specifically set up to get all these illegal aliens to live on those properties. And guess what? That guy donated $1.3 million to Greg Abbott. So you have to ask yourself, here's Matt Gaetz talking about McCarthy is bought off. I'm telling you, a guy like Tony Gonzalez is bought off. And what I'm saying to you, and this is the post I put earlier, do you regret voting for Abbott yet? Not because he broke this border, but because he's taken advantage of the situation to enrich himself and a whole bunch of other people at the risk of all of our children. I want you to think about that. New Yorkers are now feeling what people like us in Del Rio, Eagle Pass, Kinney County, all the way to Culberson County, all the way to El Paso, all the way to Hudspeth, all these, and Alden is from Fort Stockton. Fort Stockton, if you didn't know it, is Pecos County. Okay. And Pecos, Texas is actually not Pecos County. Completely story. Bottom line is, our politicians are bought off. And if you don't see it now and you think, I can't do anything about it, March is your target. But you can't. Here's what happens. They're going to fix all of this by December. You're going to sleep well during Christmas, and all of it is going to leak out. They're going to come back and tell you how wonderful of a Republican Party they were, and you're going to keep it red because that's what they tell you to do. This is how this works. For 4 years, I said, this is bull beep, because it is. You're not going to tell me that the stripes of that guy named Tony Gonzalez or McCarthy or Greg Abbott are going to change overnight. You sold us out. You need to be fired. That's all there is to it. You can make a comparable, very parallel look at what happened in Austin in the last month. Dade Phelan and allegedly 60 Republicans literally impeached a sitting attorney general that has been fighting for your border, that has been fighting for your election integrity, that has been fighting the judges. He even went to investigate the FBI, which, do you trust the FBI? No, senor. Do you trust the DOJ under the Biden administration? No. And for anybody, you need to watch the rest of what I say. There's a lot of good men and women that are working for those agencies. I wonder what it looks like for them. Which now I want to turn back to the border real quick. I had a conversation over the weekend with a good friend of mine. He's a Border Patrol agent. Love this guy. I'm not going to mention his name. And, I used to think, well, military is the only ones that get PTSD. And that's my ignorance. I mean, we know better now. But I could see it in his eyes, folks. And he's seen, one too many babies drown. One too many young ladies being raped, boys too. It's horrible. And this is why I get involved. And I'm not going to be politically correct. And you shouldn't either. Greg Abbott sucks. So does McCarthy. So does Tony Gonzalez here locally. And if your sheriff sucks too, you need to go tell him before there's a major tragedy where people get hurt, people get killed, because it's already happening. Illegal aliens get drunk and they go and run into people like everybody else. Illegal aliens get, sexually active and they go molest people and they rape people and they hurt people. And we have to police ourselves as American citizens. When you add and the number now is like 8 million, 7.2 million. Let me tell you something. I think that's a bunch of hogwash. We're probably up to the near 15, 20 million. But this is what the media does, right? They tamper it down. They tamper the numbers down. You can't look at the border, have thousands of people every day and expect to not have issues down the road. The reason I'm doing this podcast and I continue to get involved politically and I give the middle finger to anybody who tells me to quiet down is because my children drive on these streets. Your children drive on these streets. Tony Gonzalez, he don't care because he's making millions. He went to Ukraine. Everybody thinks, why did he go to Ukraine? And listen, this is our show, so we'll kick anybody around. McCarthy, all of them. You give me a name, I'll throw them around. I can tell you what's wrong with them. But today in particular, why would a guy go to you? Why would the CD23, where there's a border issue, go to Ukraine? The only reason you go to Ukraine is you want to get involved with some of the money laundering that's out there. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. I don't know if it's true or not. Just don't come back at me. I'm going to do that Senator Reid thing. Go ask him. Go ask him. Why did you go to Ukraine? But when he goes on the Griff show, the Fox News shows, they don't ask him that. They set him up and they say, "Oh, I'm here trying to secure the border." It's like Matt Gaetz says, it's just another stupid committee that doesn't go anywhere. So back to answering the question. What can you do? What can you do? Because we're about to do something different. And we're on the precipice, me and a few other good folks, of maybe deciding that we're all going to go to the border and do something and protest. Because if you look at New York, they're literally showing us off. You've seen the videos. I'll try to get some videos and put them on my Facebook and my social media. But New Yorkers are out there in front protesting the illegal aliens who are now housing just about every hotel in California and in New York. And why? Because they're pissed off. They're not safe. They don't feel right. Venezuela sent a bunch of mopeds or motorcycles or something to the folks that are there, and they're all zooming around. They're on the sidewalks. They're not following law. Listen, this is what happens when you don't bring in people through an assimilation process to become Americans. This is what happens when you cross the river and you think you're blessed to be, you got papers to stay. Well, I'm all about deporting people that are not supposed to be here. And I tell folks, look, my family came here legally. Alden's family is trying to come here illegally. He's probably going to wait another 3 years before they let him in legally. How insane is that? There's one man showing us videos and telling you, I live in Piedras because my wife can't legitimately be on this side until we get the right paperwork. He could easily cross the river and she'd be set for life. And they're going to give her money for it, but he won't do the wrong thing. And you know why? Because he's a good old young man from Texas. Fort Stockton, God bless you. You raised a good one. And he married a good lady, and he's going to try to do it right because you know what? At the end of the day, we are Christians in this country, and we're trying to do the right thing. We don't hate those people. They're here because somebody told them to come make a lot of money and do. There's a few cats in there that don't need to be here. Some of those people are MS-13, there's Zetas, there's a whole bunch of folks in there that are bad dudes. I'll say it. There's some bad hombres in that group. You understand? And but Alden and a lot of folks are trying to do it the right way. So here I am podcasting. This isn't something, I mean, folks, we build houses for a living. We're running around doing all kinds of stuff. Linda's like, you're late because my technician is like, you're late. We're not going to make it. I said, like, heck, we're not. And we're putting it together because we want to bring to you some real information, because the political correctness crap is out the door and you're going to hear it again. Come February, they're going to look at you with, oh my God, that Reyes guy is so negative. He's so negative. He's so terrible. Nah, we're just telling you the truth. And I said, well, you can thank Donald Trump for that too, because that guy opened the gates wide open on how we're going to expose people. And a lot of us we've got a lot of righteous indignation. We're a little ticked off. And so as we get close to winding it down, let me say this, because this is what I've been saying for a while. If you're watching, and I know on YouTube and over on Twitter, we got a lot of followers, Facebook, not so much, but I'm glad everybody's listening. We've had every show, we've had about 60, 70 people literally sign up on our database. And so all you got to do is email me. I'm not going to sell you anything. If you're new to the show, keep adding to the numbers, because we're going to be 4,000 people strong by March of next year. And we're going to vote this SOB right out of the office here, because this is the only thing we can affect here is in CD23 and maybe even in the local races as well. But you can do the same thing. You're going to have to stand up in Monahans and say, enough is enough. No más, no más. And you're going to have to wake up beyond Sunday morning When you go to church and your pastor throws at you all the good words and you're listening because yeah, I'm going to be a good Christian today and all that. Let me tell you something. You better put on the warrior armor that God has given you, because that's what we need right now. This is a Christian nation, and we need to start acting like it. We need to start grabbing our marbles and our jewels, whatever you call them, guys, and start using them. Because the reason I get on here and I rant and I rant and I rant, because until I can run for Congress or for some other office or poke somebody in the eye politically, we're going to keep doing all we can, bringing all the folks that are out there on the road. I mean, Anthony Aguero was out in Arizona. Alden is in Eagle Pass. That is some of the best video footage. If you don't see that this isn't just a Democrat induced issue where leftists are trying to bring a whole lot of people to this country illegally to change the American culture. Because look, it's happening in France, it's happening in Europe. There's a little island out in Italy that has 5,000 souls that live on there very comfortably. Now there's 7 or 8,000 Somalians. That, I don't know if you call that an invasion or not. You see, I'm from Del Rio, Texas. Linda Ruski here, she's from Uvalde. All of us have been impacted by this on the roads and our taxes, in our hospitals. They're inundated, and we're supposed to be sitting back and doing and saying nothing. I don't think so. So for all of you out there, this is a time for you to stop playing nice and start taking back your country. So I always say, men of Christ, for all of you who go to church, feel good when you walk out, you go get fat on tamales, and then you start the week again. You do the right thing by going to work, taking care of your families. We're not going to have a nation the way we're going if we don't start standing up together. So do me a favor. Hit me with an email. We hit 63 last time, 75 the first time around. We're climbing the numbers. And why? Because you've all dedicated yourselves to joining this group right here, whatever this is. And we're gonna en masse go vote a few people the hell out of their offices, because we don't have a lot of money, but we have God and we have our vote and we have our freedom. And if you're going to keep it, you're going to have to start voting like you give a crap. So for all of you out there, when you go to church on Sunday, don't stop being Christian on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. You're going to have to stand up and defend this country. Some of you went and did it as Marines and as Army, as Navy. God bless you for doing that. But you need to pick up your marbles and come back to the fight again, because guess what? They literally are invading not just the nation, but Texas, the great state of Texas. And they're all going to Houston, to Colony Ridge. They're all going up to Dallas, Texas, and all these other places like New York and Chicago. We have issues, and we need to start to solve them. Finally, let me answer the final question here. I told you about Bruno solving it for a couple of hours. We need a lot more folks like that, whether inadvertently or purposely. They need to, at the local level, start doing things that need to happen. If your sheriff isn't doing enough, like Brad Coe down there, God bless that guy. Sheriff, if you're listening, God bless you. We pray you're safe, and all your law enforcement out there. Then you need to start talking to those folks. And if they don't want to change, you need to start running for those offices. You still have time. You have to December the 6th or the 7th before you got to put your name on the ballot for March. Get out there. It's like, oh, I don't know how to do that. Call me. I'll help you. There's a lot of people that are willing to help you, but don't fall for all this extra big money, because all they want is for you to do what they want you to do. And that's how you get a Tony Gonzalez. That's how you get a McCarthy. And you don't get a Matt Gaetz like the one we saw today. Let me tell you something. God bless Matt Gaetz and anybody that's like him, that's taking on the power packs that are in D.C., like McCarthy and his shrills. All of them pretending like they come back home to tell you these things and those things. It can't happen anymore. We can't do that anymore. So with all of that said, we're about an hour or a little bit, a few minutes over. Thank you for listening. We're going to be back next week. I said we were going to talk COVID. Let me show you this picture here, because it will sort of set this up for next week. But this is kind of what's happening right now. If it wasn't so real what they did to us with the coronavirus, Isn't this what it looks like right about now? They want to keep the coronavirus issue alive and kicking. They want you to get vaccinated with COVID-19. I mean, as far as I know, this is 2023, right? Technician, yeah, okay. And so this is the world we live in. Fox News isn't going to tell you this. They're not going to tell you how many lives they put in danger with the vaccinations when they didn't give us enough information. You see, hell, they shut down our churches, people. I, I didn't stop going. There's no way in heck I was going to stop going. I'm glad my church stayed open. And so this is going to be round two. Because guess what? We're in election. And we're going to have this conversation next week about COVID, what it is, what is it. And I'm no doctor. So if you don't want, I'm not giving you advice on medicine. What I'm telling you is just what the facts are now post COVID, because masking isn't going to work. They didn't work before. All it did, it gave a bunch of Karens a right to kind of tell you off when you weren't wearing your mask in church. And this 6 feet, wow, what a joke that turned out to be. Last one, I remember going to El Paso and I stopped at this restaurant, you see, and everybody's wearing a mask. I'm like, I'm not gonna wear a mask. And and as soon as they go and sit down, by the way, at Mexican restaurants, they're like, we're all crimped in because we all want tamales, we all want carne guisada, right? And on Sundays we gotta have our menudo, right? Right. And some dude looking at the other table, hey, pásame el limón, like pass me the lemons. And I'm like, and as soon as they walked out, they put the mask on. And I said, okay, what about the doorknob? We all touch the doorknob. I mean, we're all paranoid. You get in an airplane and somebody in the back coughs. Oh, they all look at you like it's like you got the coronavirus, ridiculous. And the people who told us it was the science were full of crap, because they weren't using science. They were using political ploys to move us left and right, and they hurt a lot of people. And we're going to talk about the policies where some of our family's members died because of that. Some of your family members died. And this is America. We got to expose it. So thank God that we're able to be on the internet. We're not professionals. Linda Ruski is doing the best she can to try to make me look good. Got a little long hair in the back. That's why we wear this cap. By the way, I told everybody, as soon as you see the hair go back to trim, I'm probably going to run for something. So y'all let Tony Gonzalez know that we're thinking about it at least. And but no promises. And so all that said, Christian America, you got to take back your country. You can't be sitting down anymore. We can't afford it. You got to do it for your kids, and you got to do it for all those babies that are they're using to come to this country illegally. They should have never been on the road, period, end of story. And so with that said, we're going to end it. Thank you all. Push share on this thing. You can follow us on Twitter and on YouTube. We're signing off saying God bless you, and God bless this wonderful country of ours. Amen.